I'm delighted to be joined once again by our MP for Wrexham, Sarah Atherton. She is, of course, our representative in Westminster. Joined today in the aftermath of what was an incredible game yesterday for Wrexham. It seems only fitting that I think, Sarah, we should start off by talking about Wrexham, shouldn't we, really?
Oh, yes, and thank you, and belated Happy Easter. And what an Easter bumper weekend it was in Wrexham. You know, wasn't it a fantastic match yesterday? I saw it on BT Sport. We're buzzing, aren't we? We're absolutely buzzing. And I know that Wrexham partied hard last night, and I know there'll be a few sore heads this morning. But, you know, what can I say? This is
I
great.
mean, front page of BBC News, you got Rob and Ryan. You got Wrexham.
Well,
Wrexham's there. It's just incredible. It really is.
so 7 o'clock, I turned Good Morning Britain on, and there it was. And Wrexham Lager got a shout out as well. Ben Foster did a great job. You know, we're more than likely now to go up. Well, what can we say? It's just
I mean, Friday was a
fantastic.
disappointment, so it made the Easter weekend a very long wait for Wrexham, I think, after Friday's disappointment. But I think we've certainly obliterated that into history, haven't we, really?
Well, 4 games to go. Barnett's got to be in the bag. We're 3 points ahead already. It's great, and I'm delighted. I'm delighted that Wrexham is buzzing. As a representative of Wrexham in London, I do my bit for Wrexham down there. We have WhatsApp groups, and all the MPs are, you know, they're all talking about their football clubs. Well, flipping heck, have I got something to tell them with Wrexham? So it was fantastic over the weekend. Really great. So,
and of course, the only result we could have had after Rob and Ryan were, of course, awarded the freedom of Wrexham as well over the weekend. So
I know, it just keeps getting better, doesn't it?
an incredible story. And whoever thought Wrexham would have a Hollywood storyline? Who knew?
And whoever thought Wrexham would have Hollywood living in Wrexham?
Yet another development over the weekend. It just keeps on coming, doesn't it? It's like one of these fantastic Netflix serials, which every episode just throws in something new and takes your breath away. It really is.
And every time I go into a pub or a bar, I always look at aviation gin, and it's always empty.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But of course, we could spend the whole hour talking just about football and things like that. And that would be, I'm sure many people would be quite happy with that. But there are several other things, of course, that are important for you as our Member of Parliament. One of those being the spring budget, of course. So can we talk about the spring budget then, Sarah?
Yes, so I've been asked by quite a few businesses and people in Wrexham to lobby the Chancellor around fuel duty, and I'm really pleased that, and I wrote to him and spoke to him about it, and I'm really pleased that that was frozen in the spring budget, along with maintaining a 5p reduction for the rest of the year. Just to touch on, though, what he did mention, which I know is of particular interest to the people of Wrexham, is the energy price guarantee of the £2,500 per household is going to be extended until June. They gave an extra 180 million to the Welsh Government, which is great for the Welsh Government to spend on what they see fit for the people of Wales. Particularly dear to my heart, he froze the beer duty because, you know, I like a good pint of real ale, as people probably know. He added 11 million to the defence budget, which is something else I work on quite deeply in Parliament, and that 11 million is spread over the next 5 years. And very importantly to the people of Wrexham, of 5,500 veterans that live in Wrexham County Borough Council, he's given 30 million to the Office of Veteran Affairs. So overall, you know, a good budget. There's always winners and losers, but I think from what the people of Wrexham tell me that they needed in the budget, it was quite a good one for Wrexham.
In terms of the whole cost of living crisis that we've been going through, do you think we're through the worst of it now? Do you think, you know, having got through the winter, we've got through the high fuel prices, do you think we're looking at being in the right direction for life to be a bit more manageable now?
I think we are going in the right direction. The support's there. You know, support is not a bottomless pit of money. It's UK taxpayers' money. There are other priorities and demands on that money. I'm pleased summer's coming. We were just talking now about I chanced my arm and turned my heating off over Easter, and I've turned it back on again today. But, with the good weather, hopefully people's energy bills won't be as high. We are going in the right direction. We're probably over the worst, but it's still quite hard for some people. And actually, over the weekend, I went to the Rossett Community Cupboard, which is run by Paul and volunteers in Rossett. And essentially, it's a food bank. And I went there to support Paul and the work they're doing there. And people from all over Wrexham are going there for support. So there's still hardship out there. But what Paul's also doing is supporting families in a local hotel. And the hotel's been turned into emergency accommodation. So he's supporting out of the Rossett Community Cupboard. He's supporting particularly families in that hotel. But what he did do, and I'd like to say a bit of a shout out at this point for Paul, he did an Easter egg hunt for all the children in the local village of Rossett. He put 250 Easter egg vouchers out around the village, and I was there, and the streams of children coming in to collect their Easter eggs, and the Easter Bunny made a rare appearance for the best part of an hour. So well done, Paul, for doing that. So, but there is hardship still out there, but we're on the right track.
And again, just another shining example of how the people of Wrexham come together when the community is in need, isn't it? It's fantastic to see that spirit in Wrexham.
Oh, they absolutely do. They did it during COVID. We're seeing it now. And one thing I did want to mention as well about Wrexham coming together is the first ever Business and Community Awards, which is going to be hosted at Networld Sport on the 10th of November. And this is an initiative. This is now recognising the businesses in Wrexham. We're soon to have the largest trading estate in Europe. It's recognising the businesses, what they do for the community, the employment and the investment that they provide. And on the 10th of November this year, we're going to have the Community and Business Awards. So if people want to get involved in that, it's very much for Wrexham, by Wrexham. Please email in on info@wrexhambca.co.uk. That's info@wrexhambca.co.uk. And Alex Lovin at Networld Sport is promising a Hollywood event.
And again, it's great to see the spotlight being shone on North Wales, because so many business awards tend to, let's be honest, they tend to sort of weigh towards the south of Wales, which is natural because there's so much business there. But to have our own awards here up in North Wales, I think it's brilliant, isn't it, to shine a light on the work going on up here.
Oh, it's absolutely putting us on the map. Wrexham in the last couple of years has got some opportunities, aspiration, it's going somewhere. And it's competing with South Wales, and about time too. And we also look to the northwest because, a lot of people cross the border to work, and it's about forging links with the northwest as well. So we've got a really bright future ahead of us in Wrexham, and we are all working together as a community to make the best of it.
And I think, leading on from that is the government is also recognising these opportunities in Wrexham, isn't it? Now, there's some interesting developments, aren't there, with investment into Wrexham that you wanted to share about today?
Yes, so what the Chancellor also mentioned in his spring statement was the possibility of an investment zone in Wales. I would not like it to go to South Wales. I think this is Wrexham's time, and we should look at an investment zone. Now, what that investment zone actually is, we don't know yet. And I've had meetings with the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, Michael Gove. I'm seeing the Chancellor next week. I met the Secretary of State for Wales last week. And I also met the Prime Minister last week on a call with council leaders to look really at how we get the best, how we make the best for Wrexham with some of the opportunities going forward. And that's not just with the UK government, that's working hand in hand with the Welsh government as well, because we can't work in isolation. We do live in a devolved administration. And we need to work together to get the best for Wrexham, and that's what I've been trying to do.
I think seeing Wrexham taking a prominent seat at that table at this stage of these conversations, I think that's such an incredible step forward for Wrexham, isn't it, really, compared to where we were just a few years ago. The credibility is there, the desire is there, that hunger is there, isn't it, for Wrexham to really grow now?
Do you know what? The hunger's absolutely there, absolutely. And people are starting to work together and realise what potential we've got. And for me, as the representative, doing my bit in London, doing my bit here, it's really, really exciting, and it's opportunities. But, sadly, on the flip side, we've still got challenges. So this week, in particular, you'll notice in the Daily Post and the Leader, articles about dentistry. Now, problems with dentists have not been new. You know, they've been building momentum over the last 6-8 months, perhaps even a bit longer post-COVID. We've had one constituent that actually, through sheer frustration and pain, pulled his own tooth out. And that was a few months back. And now what we've seen is at Ruaban Road Surgery, 3,000 NHS patients receiving a letter saying, I'm sorry, you know, we can no longer support you as an NHS patient, but we can support you as a private patient. These are problems now we're facing, along with our healthcare, the oral healthcare side, which again it's a devolved power. It's run by Welsh Government in Cardiff. What we've seen is the Welsh Government have changed the regulations around what they will support. They've reformed the contracts. They say for the better, and more patients will be able to be seen under the NHS. We're not seeing that at all. What we've seen particularly is thousands of patients in Wrexham no longer have an NHS dentist. What's happened is with the reform, Betsy Cadwallader has reduced its support, its capacity for 25% of NHS patients, forcing them to look for alternatives. And there are no alternatives in Wrexham, or to go private. Now, I haven't got a problem with private healthcare at all. In fact, NHS Wales use a lot of private healthcare, for example, renal services, and have done for a long time. I've got no problem with that because private healthcare has helped with some backlogs, particularly around orthopaedics, with patients from Wrexham going over to the Wirral to get joints and bones and hips and knees done. That's absolutely fine. It's worked with the backlog. It's worked to do more specialist services that they don't provide in North Wales, like renal care. And also it gives people options and choices. And I'm all for people having options and choices in life, whatever those are. But they need to make a positive move to choose private healthcare. So if people can afford to choose private healthcare, that's great, because what it does is relieves the capacity on the NHS, so people who can't afford it can actually get seen quicker. But this isn't doing that. What it's doing is taking away the NHS provision. There's no NHS provision for these 3,000 patients or more. They have to go private or nothing, and that's what I don't agree with.
And I think people are very frustrated that, especially with the cost of living as it is at the moment, they don't see being private as an option at all, do they, at the moment?
No, and this goes on to what I've been saying about my healthcare campaign. We've seen people take out equity release from their homes to pay for private cancer care. We've seen people take out payday loans to have hips and joints operations. You know, that can't be right.
What do you see as being sort of the way forward in this then? Do you have any thoughts yourself on that?
I think you know what? I think it'll be a brave politician, and I think this is probably why it's not happened so far, to think, you know what, Ella and Bevan set this up in a very different world we're in now. And, you know, people are living longer, treatments are more expensive, medications are more expensive. Some people can afford it, some people can't. And I think we need to perhaps look abroad to see what they do in other European countries, because, you know, 3,000 patients who can't afford a dentist and have no other option for oral dental care, that can't be right. That's a system that's just failed, full stop. So
do you think there should be an onus maybe on employers as well to bring this into some of the benefits they might offer their staff? Do you think perhaps employers should be more willing to bring healthcare into, you know, certainly in other countries, healthcare is considered quite, you know, a standard part of your employment reward. Do you think that's something we should look at in this country?
I think we should look at every opportunity, every avenue that actually provides healthcare and social care that people need. I don't think we should just be so blinkered, because having a blinkered approach, we are in a situation that we're in now where people can't get to see a dentist, whether they can afford it or not. Certainly, lots of large employers do offer healthcare provision as part of their terms and conditions, as part of their contract. And I think perhaps we should start looking at just every option available to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Staying on the topic of health then, is I just want to talk about breast cancer for a moment. It's something that obviously for you is Also very close to your heart, isn't it?
Yes, so I met Dr. Aisha, who's a doctor at the Myla, and she came to London to set up an exhibition called The Darker Side of Pink. And the charity she advocates for is called Met Up UK. And it was an interactive mobile exhibition that she set up because the biggest killer of women under 50, the biggest cancer killer of women under 50 is metastatic breast cancer. And she was there to highlight that in Parliament. And I'm working with Dr. Aisha to see whether we can bring it up to Wrexham, really to highlight to women under 50 that this is a concern and what to do about it, how to check that you're okay. But our cancer services in Wales are in crisis. We do have a suspected cancer pathway, which aims for patients who suspect they've got cancer, they've seen a dodgy lump and bump, or they're not feeling too good, or they've got a cough, or they're seeing blood in certain areas that they don't want to see. If they're suspected cancer, they should start their treatment within 62 days. Well, only 50% of patients with suspected cancer are following that pathway within the guidelines of 62 days. And that's the worst statistic ever for Wales. So again, we're seeing people being let down by our cancer services. Although on saying that, we have a great cancer unit at the Myla who do some great work. If you're lucky enough to get into those services at the right time, you do receive a really good service. It's just accessing that pathway, accessing healthcare, accessing your GP or nurses or the cancer oncologist or the cancer unit at the right time. And that's the issue. Once you're there, the care is fantastic.
Do you think part of that is from patients themselves, there's a sort of a reluctance to burden what they know is an overburdened GP system already? Or do you think it's perhaps that people don't maybe recognise the seriousness of that early intervention? What do you think sort of behind that?
Yeah, we had a mobile liver scanning monitoring unit that came to Queen Square, and I went down to see, and there was a whole line of people waiting to have this test, which is a free test. And it basically said, how healthy your liver was. And there was a lot of people waiting to go there, but I was chatting to people walking past, and they were going, no, I don't want to know. No, I don't want to know. So there is this reluctance, this head in the sand attitude that I think some people have, and that's their choice to do that. I also think that it's accessing services at the right time, knowing where to go. I mean, I've had casework of young mums who found a lump in their breast and can't get to see a GP. Now, if you've got young children and you think that you've got cancer, breast cancer, you're frantic. Your life's turned upside down. Your whole world's imploded. And you just need to know that you can start seeing the right person to get the care that you need, or the reassurance you need that it's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's that first line accessibility that we've got a problem with, particularly around accessing GPs.
Okay, the more we can do, the better. And again, it's raising that awareness, and it's promoting dialogue, isn't it, across the spectrum? It's encouraging dialogue, isn't it, on the topic?
Well, it is, and I'm meeting Jill Harris, the interim chief exec of Betsy, next week. I've also written to the health minister. I think we're virtually pen pals at the moment. I think I write so much to her, and I let people know the response. And really, just it's my duty to devolve power, as I say. It's my duty to let the health ministers in London know the extent of what's London, Cardiff, the extent of what's happening here in Wrexham and the impact it's having. Because they're sat in South Wales and we're in North Wales. We've been neglected for a while, and it's my duty to let them know what's going on up here.
And I think, of course, it's important to understand. We know that there's a big change needed in the provision across the board in North Wales, but it can't happen overnight, can it? So it has to be an ongoing, let's say, intelligence-led process. But we've got to embrace that and work and help each other, haven't we? Really.
Do you know what? You're absolutely right, and we've got to work together. I know Betsy Cadwallader and the Welsh Government have taken a bit of a bashing, but it's about working together. It's about, as elected representatives, as services, as state sector, we're here to work together to improve things. And that's what I've always said about the Health Minister. We need to really work together rather than be adversarial and blame each other. It's about highlighting some of the issues we've got, some of the suggestions we've got going forward, and giving Betsy a bit of time and Welsh Government a bit of time to sort this out. I have faith in them doing that, but then when I see that their reforms have led to NHS patients not being able to see a dentist, I sometimes get a little bit fatigued with all the reforms and strategies and the money that Welsh Government say they're putting into our healthcare. And actually, it just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. They say it's going to get better. They're training more dentists. We've got the new medical school, which I'm supporting over in Bangor, which will have a hub, hopefully here in Wrexham. Absolutely super supportive of that. We're doing great work around educating, training nurses in Wrexham, linking it in with nurse cadets at College Cambria, the Myla, the university, the new innovative hub they've got there for nurse training. Massive supporter of that, being a nurse trained in Wrexham myself, growing our own. I'm really supportive of that. And it is about working together, but we just need to see some short-term benefits, and things seem to be getting a little bit worse.
What would your advice be to constituents who are feeling that they're struggling to access the services they need? What do you recommend they do?
Well, first of all, go to the GP and then get in contact with me. And I will advocate for them. I think it's very sad that we have, my casework load is phenomenal. I have to take on extra caseworkers because that's because the need is there, and because people can't break through that system themselves. So if they're having problems getting in touch with the GP, getting an appointment, getting the care, if they're stuck on waiting lists, which sometimes can be a few years, and they're in pain and they can't work, they're struggling to continue their activities of daily living, please get in touch with me and I'll see what I can do. But as I say, it's a devolved power, but I do have good relationships with the health service. We try and keep that going for the greater good of Wrexham patients.
Excellent. If we move on to the topic of childcare reforms and provision, then I'd love to talk to you about some of what's happening in that field.
Yes, so it was really good that the government in England only, again, this is a devolved power, is expanding free childcare for 30 hours over the age of 9 months. I was a single mum here in Wrexham. When I trained as a nurse, I was on a bursary, and I think my bursary was something like £86 a week. And my son went to Peter Pan Nursery at the Myla, and that was £96 a week. So it was really hard for me to start a career whilst being a single mum with childcare. So I understand that childcare is so important if you want people to work, if you want them to have careers. And I know when I do my street surgeries, childcare for working parents is a really big issue. So they've introduced that, they've recognised that in England, and Welsh Government have been given the equivalent money, what they call Barnett consequentials. So if something happens in England, the Welsh Government get a proportion of money to do the same in Wales, but it's up to the Welsh Government whether they want to do the same. Now, it was asked in the Senedd whether with the First Minister, whether he was going to replicate the same scheme in Wales, which I know is needed. But he said he's not going to do that, which I think is a crying shame, because we need to support working parents to work, and we need to support people like myself quite a while back to get out to work, to train, to contribute to employment and businesses, because what businesses are telling me in Wrexham is they can't get the staff, particularly hospitality. They can't get the staff, and they're not working as they want to work because they can't get the staff. Well, if we've got lots of people with childcare responsibilities, they can't get to work because the money won't match their childcare costs. So it's about offering people, again, choice. Welsh Government are not going to, or they're saying they're not going to at the moment, do the same scheme in Wales. I've written to the Welsh Government to explain how important that is to the people of Wrexham, to have childcare and childcare support, and I'll give you a feedback when we get something back from the Welsh Government.
Of course, a lot of eyes on how fast this can be delivered in Wales, isn't it? And let's hope it can be delivered, as fast as is possible under the scheme, and really see some benefits for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a bit about helping people get to work as well, because as I mentioned before, when I was a single parent and training as a nurse at the Mile, it would have been much easier for me to actually go on benefits. But I didn't want to, because I wanted to have a career. And it's about, helping people to do that.
And incentivizing people into work, isn't it, is, really, really important there. I'm conscious how much time we have got left. There's still a couple of things that you did want to mention in today's conversation. One of those was your recent police walkabout.
Yes, we've had, you might have seen in the press, dispersal notices put on certain areas in Wrexham. Antisocial behaviour is a concern. It has been a rising concern over the last few months with teenagers, kids, youths congregating in Wrexham. And we all did it. We used to do it at youth clubs. Our youth clubs have closed, so now people come into Wrexham. But it's not about kids being kids. It's worse than that. It's about that level of antisocial behaviour, that hostility, which is making people fearful of coming into town. So Inspector Luke from the town or city police station, I went on a walkabout with Inspector Luke, and I work quite closely with Inspector Luke, and he was looking at what they're doing now to support antisocial behaviour and the dispersal orders, which I'm very much in favour of, which seem to be working quite well. They're only put in place when they have to be, for the length of time they have to be. But they're seeing some good results there. Now, I'm a massive fan of neighbourhood policing. Bobby's on the beat, highly visible police, because it offers people reassurance and confidence in our town. So, in our town centre. So I'm really pleased that the cop shop, which used to be near Calon, Stephen Vale's Cafe, then moved over to Eagles Meadow, is hopefully coming back to a more central location. I have heard chapter courts, but I haven't heard anything confirmed yet, because that was a service used considerably by people just popping in, getting that reassurance, seeing a uniform behind a desk, getting some home safety advice, raising concerns about what was going on, not only in rural Wrexham, but in the city centre itself. So doing some great work with Inspector Luke. We're seeing more police officers in North Wales now. We're seeing more police officers in Wrexham. The UK government had a 20,000 increase target. I think they're probably near that. But we are seeing more police around and about. I would like to see more. Obviously, I'd like to see more. And also PCSOs. I'd like to see more PCSOs, because I think they do a very good job as well. So that was my walkabout with Inspector Luke, and I'm going out with the Wrexham Rural Police next week, I think. No, it's not. It's in May. So I'm going out with them as well to look at more of the rural issues and rural crime that goes on, and what strategies they're putting in place to protect property.
And of course, that's very important to remember with Wrexham, that we've got a huge rural area, haven't we, as Wrexham as a whole, as a county. And lots of unique challenges facing it. We don't have a lot of time left, Sarah, but you did want to talk about defence, of course. Defence is something that's very important to you in your role in Parliament. What news do we have on the topic of defence at the moment? Yes,
I just wanted to highlight to your listeners that when I'm in Parliament, if I'm not dealing with Wrexham and Wales, I have a very broad defence brief. And it's about 2 years ago, I undertook a study under the Defence Select Committee, and I chaired an inquiry into women in the armed forces and female veterans. And I don't know whether you know, but it uncovered a lot of issues with women in our military and the lack of visibility and acknowledgement of female veterans. And of course, I'm a female veteran myself. I was in the army back in the 80s. That shook the foundations of the MOD. 34 recommendations were taken forward by the MOD. And one sobering area was murder, manslaughter, and particularly rape and sexual assault in the military, which of course is heard by a court-martial system, not the civilian courts that we know and see. And the statistics for convicting rape cases was very, very, very low. There was obviously something going wrong there. And they've changed the whole investigation process, the forensic process, the court-martial board system on the back of the report I undertook. And I'm pleased to see that confidence in the system is building, and there are more convictions for rape cases now, which is a good thing. It doesn't sound a good thing, but it is a good thing, because until now, women weren't getting justice. So that's
these
really
are really
good.
significant reforms, aren't they, really, when you look at them? Is obviously
massive. Far
better would not be having to have any prosecutions, but if they are needed, then we need to make sure they are facilitated, don't we?
Well, absolutely. And ultimately, it's about operational effectiveness of our military, but it's about British values of justice, fairness, and equality. And I'm also pleased that I do a lot with female veterans, or veterans full stop, but in particular female veterans. And the Office of Veterans Affairs is just being given 30 million, as mentioned before, and what they're going to use some of that money on is looking at a women's veterans strategy, which I suspect I'll be working quite closely with Johnny Mercer, MP, over. So some really good work around defence, and I'm also conscious that Taiwan and Ukraine, we're looking at a spring offensive. Our energy bills, our food bills have gone up as a consequence of what Russia has done in Ukraine. I'm also conscious of China and Taiwan. And of course, what do Taiwan make? They make 90% of the world's semiconductors. And what do we use semiconductors for? All our electronics. So if anything happens between China and Taiwan, we're going to have a total collapse of our electronic system. Which is cars, phones, anything that you can think of that needs a semiconductor. We're suddenly not going to get them. So I'm working quite hard behind the scenes to look at contingency planning and what's going on in Taiwan and China, and to make sure that if something did happen, Britain is not going to be vulnerable. So there's a lot of work that I do behind the scenes that perhaps people don't realise or see.
Indeed, I'm sure people don't realise that a lot of this, and I'm sure people don't realise, we've got these huge vulnerabilities still. I'm sure since the situation in Ukraine, the UK has done an awful lot to look at these vulnerabilities in supply chain and stuff like that, across the board. But it is a time of challenge. We do have to keep our eye on the ball and observe what's happening, don't we? Sarah, thank you ever so much for talking for me today. Our time is limited, unfortunately. I'm sure we can continue with many things. Incredible to see the work that's been going on over the last month, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. Speak to you soon.